Good morning and assalamu alaikum. It is 10 o'clock and you are listening to me on the Urban Kube Show, brought to you on Inspire FM 105.1 FM. The time is 10 o'clock, as I've already mentioned, and the date is the 26th of January. It's an absolute pleasure to be in your company this morning. Excuse me. And we are going out to the wonderful people, Luton surrounding areas this morning, as well as Peterborough's Salam Radio and Sheffield's Link FM. The show you're listening to is the Urban Kube, where I have wonderful conversations with trailblazing Muslims who are inspiring, innovative, and I get to share their stories, explore the projects that they're doing, and inspire you to get involved. Today's show is no exception. I'm joined by a tremendous guest joining me, folks, on Zoom or StreamYard, and they are going to be speaking to me all the way from Spain this morning. I have the absolute pleasure to be joined by no other than Henrietta Szovati. She's a writer, leadership consultant and coach, and she's the founder of the House of Andalus. We are going to be talking today about her story behind an Andalusia supper club, and which is an intimate evening inspired by Andalus, where food, culture, and conversation come together under candlelight. And she's joining me on the show all the way up to 11 o'clock. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, you're very welcome to WhatsApp to the show on 0779 481 822 or leave them on Facebook, because we are Facebook Live as well. And it's an absolute pleasure to be in the company of Henrietta this morning. Assalamu alaikum, Henrietta.
Wa alaikum salam, Shemiza. Lovely to be here with you today.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you join us all the way from Spain. I want to firstly ask you, tell us what it looks like this morning.
It looks beautiful. The sun is out. I'm up in the mountains, about 20 minutes away from the nearest village. And the sun has brought about 16 degrees this morning. We had a light rain at night. But apart from that, the birds are singing, the pool is sparkling, and I think we are looking ahead for a really lovely day. And I am going to be doing some farming work after I finish this interview with you.
Oh, sounds like a wonderful morning that you have there, and a beautiful day ahead. Henrietta, thank you so very much for joining the Urban Kube. You have been a guest on the show in the past, so it's such a pleasure to have you here. I think you were closer to me in England, or even you joined me in the studio as well. You have been a guest in the past before, so it's brilliant to have you back, and especially talking about some of the amazing things that you are doing. Henrietta, I just wanted to ask you, what first drew you to the world of Andalus? And am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, it's Andalus. It's so I wanted to make a distinction because I think it can be confusing. So Andalusia is the part of Spain, which is a southern part of Spain, one of the communities. And Al-Andalus is actually a cultural, philosophical era that the Muslims created here from 711 until 1492. And of course, it continued its legacy, which is what I fell in love with. So I lived in Spain for 2 years with my children. I wrote my first book here, and I was inspired to write the rest of the books that I have been working on. And it was actually my son, one afternoon. I used to just jump into the car with them every Saturday afternoon, take them around. And once we were driving through a tiny village in the middle of the mountain, somewhere near Ronda, which is where we lived. And my son said, "Mom, everywhere we go," he was about 5 or 6 years old, "everywhere we go, there is something Arabic or Islamic or something Muslim about the place." And I started to take notice. And of course, we hear about Muslims and Spanish Islam and the legacy of Andalus. But that was the time when I really started looking very intentionally. And lo and behold, of course, every house, almost every corner, there are tiles. There's the remnants of Al-Andalus, which was a thriving, incredible society. So that was about 12 years ago. And ever since, I have been writing books. I have been writing articles, journals. I've been teaching. I have been just completely immersed in the culture, because I think there is so much that we can learn for our today's society from what the Muslims created here for nearly 800 years.
Absolutely. And thank you for opening this pathway for us to learn about this Spanish history that is so core to Islamic heritage as well. So what is it that you have found for yourself that has kind of inspired you deeply for you to remain?
So I think there was something about the era, the time of being in a space where education, creativity, innovation was really part of daily life. And the more you learn about not just the very famous figures that we know and we heard about, but when you look at how real daily life was at the time of Andalus, I got really inspired by seeing how literacy was nearly unknown. Women were highly regarded, and they had a specific space for their leadership, for their work, what they were doing. I was incredibly inspired by the amount of innovation and creativity that was coming out of this time. So I loved almost, it's a little bit like sometimes I imagine I was a medieval woman, and when I'm walking in old villages or towns here in Andalusia, and I have probably visited most of them at least once, if not more than once, I kind of feel like I slotted in so naturally that I felt like I was in my element. So I just kept going to archives and libraries, and the more I learned, the more I just got so pulled into this beautiful world of poetry and music and expressions of beauty. I guess it's one of my pulls. And of course, we have the fantastic idea of the Green Revolution, which also happened at the time when the Muslims settled. So they renovated the old Roman watering system, the irrigation system. So they created a beautifully thriving, almost created paradise here. And at some point, it was called as paradise. So I was always drawn to nature. I grew up on a farm with my grandparents. So somehow marrying these things just felt really natural here in Andalusia.
Just listening to you has kind of really inspired me, and it's kind of taking me there just by through your words. So imagine just actually being present in that space. It sounds extraordinary. You're writing, Henrietta, you're a writer, mashallah, a creative. You spoke about poetry as well there. So in your writing, tell us a little bit about that. What is it that you write about?
So it's very interesting for me because when you ask me this question, I go immediately to the answer of I create a life through writing, actually. So I think on page, I process on page, and sometimes my family laughs because before anything happens in my house, I write about 2 hours in the morning and just processing life and things and relationships and conversations that either I am about to have or I'm too scared of having yet. But it's a way for me to really process. And I have been writing ever since I was about 10. I started off with journaling, and somehow writing has just become a way of being for me. Something happens in the brain as we process on page. There is a different part of our brain that becomes active and alive when we put things on page. It's very different from writing on a computer, which I do as well, but handwriting activates a different part of the brain. And because I studied neuroscience, and that's my kind of love for the work that I do, I know the difference between processing on page and then writing on a computer. So when you write, your right hemisphere gets activated. So all the dreams, the aspirations, the creativity essentially comes through, and the other part of your brain is going to help you to organize it in a kind of consistent way. And when you go to the computer, it's a very different experience, because for that, both parts of your brain have to work, but more so the left side of the brain, which is kind of where editing becomes easier because that part of your brain is focusing. So for me, writing is an expression. It's a conversation with myself, I guess, and it just really helps me process some of the things that I either can't say out loud yet, but it also puts me in a very reflective mode, which I believe is getting lost in our communities. And Islamic tradition really values reflection. I think if anyone asked me what's more important, I think reflection is more important than actually doing a project. Because if you don't reflect effectively, if you don't sit with results, with failures, with successes, then we are just really just scampering around, and we are not really grabbing what's important. We don't grab the lessons, and Allah is giving us lessons all the time, but we don't take the time to actually absorb these lessons and really deeply reflect on them.
You've raised a beautiful point there, and about reflection. I think one thing that we're not doing enough of is slowing down. And I think the art of journaling allows you to sit in your space and consolidate your thoughts. And the key word that you is reflection. And we're not doing enough about it. And the thing I'm sensing from you is this is an art that I feel that maybe you're paying more attention to and encouraging more people to do in your space.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's quite interesting how I notice in myself. I've got grown-up children, so I know the social media craze. I know what people do, and we have to do it because that's now has become part of our life. But there's an intentionality that we actually have a capacity to practice, and I think some of our scholars are talking about this. Is that surfing the internet is called surfing for a reason. We are not in control of our minds, and we don't stop. We just go through the dopamine hits each time we see something interesting, and sometimes we go down rabbit holes that we never thought we would ever get to. But that's because our brain is not in control of what we consume, and I think it's our responsibility to make sure that whatever comes in is within our capacity to manage and even control. That some of the things that we see just runs through our mind, and just imagine those images constantly bombarding our brains, and we are not able to even take it in. And I know this for myself. When I'm on social media for however much time I spend on social media, somehow the sense of time seems to shift and change, and I just realize I spend maybe 10-15 minutes, but it feels like I don't even know where I am anymore. So it's about positioning ourselves. It's about being in control of what actually enters our brain. Do I want this thing to influence me, or am I just being taken for a ride? And I think when we are taken for a ride, that's where we lose our capacity to be thinking critically, to be really taking up on the good thoughts that we want to cultivate, nurturing thoughts, nourishing thoughts, because there is so much out in the world, but we are not able to pick what's necessary for us and what's needed, and what is it that I intentionally actually want to spend time with. So I think it's a whole. I feel like it's a whole kind of experience for the body, because it's one thing to know about these things, but actually do them in practice. It rewires our entire system.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that, because at the weekend, I was amongst a lot of audio artists, creatives, and producers. And a lot of us, I was surprised by one thing that brought us together, not just our creativity, but this thing about social anxiety and being on social media, and and a lot of people are kind of not wanting to be on social media anymore. They want more control of their lives, away from the prying eyes of social media, and having that balance. And it's quite a hard thing to actually do. I think it's quite a radical shift, to be able to disconnect yourself from like social media, because it is quite addictive.
Yes, but I think the word that I really love is about intentionality. I think for certain things we need social media, because people are doing amazing jobs, amazing projects, amazing things that we would like to invite others to be participating. But I think there's a difference between good material, and there is material that is really not needed. It's a lot of advertising is coming in, and then a lot of the things that almost it's engineering our way of thinking. And I think that's where we need to be a little bit more careful. If it's about sharing projects that we feel that it's for the benefit of the community, for benefit of other people, I think it's different, and we can be again intentional about how we come across. But then on the other hand, we also see a lot of curated lives, and I have the alhamdulillah, I have the opportunity to meet some of those people in real life, and I often get really surprised, like the difference between how they appear on social media and how they are in real life. And I think that's where I'm becoming a lot more conscious about seeing that people curate lives, but they are not necessarily who they are. And I think in front of Allah, we can't really curate our lives. We will be questioned about our actions and what we do with our skills and talents.
Very interesting point that you've raised there. Folks, it's 10:15. You are listening to the Urban Kube with me, Shemiza. It's an absolute pleasure to be in your company this morning. I am joined by the absolutely wonderful Henrietta Szovati. She's a writer, leadership consultant and coach, and the founder of the House of Andalus. We are joined all the way up to 11 o'clock with Henrietta this morning, talking about the art of conversation. A very interesting subject, something that I'm very drawn to because I love having conversations, as you can hear on the Urban Kube show. If you have a question that you would like to ask Henrietta, please feel free to do so on 07779481822 or leave a comment on our Facebook page where you can actually see Henrietta. The show is live and we'll be happy to answer those questions. Henrietta, you are doing something very interesting in London, and it is about conversations, about bringing people together, and there's a bit of food in there as well. Tell us more.
So yes, as part of the ethos, I guess it's for the House of Andalus that we have started. I really believe that we have different kind of conversations people are wanting and needing, and just like I love food, I know a lot of people do appreciate good food. So we created a supper club. I know the concept itself is nothing new because a lot of people have done this before. Our focus is actually bringing Andalusi culture to wherever we go. So we already had one supper club up in Manchester, and we are now coming down. Well, I live in London, so we are doing supper club in London. And after the first couple of days of starting to advertise, we actually had to put up another date because we just couldn't accommodate that many people. So I think there is a need for us to sit around the table, and it's a seated table with not just the aesthetics of the table, but I guess it's about really bringing people together around the subjects that they feel passionate about. And for me, it's Andalus. It's about this whole kind of Islamic history and Spain and everything that Spain brings to our lives. So the supper club is about sitting around and talking about things that matter, learning something new, connecting to a different culture, try some kind of different foods that you may have never tried, which is there was another big thing for me about Spain is I absolutely love the freshness of the food. I probably gain about 10 years back from my life when I'm here. So I move around on the farm, we eat fresh food, we eat out in the air, fresh air, it's proper al fresco dining. So I really feel that the nutritional value of the food is very different when we do it properly. Whereas, other times we eat out of stress, and if someone asks me what brought me to Spain, I always say to people, it's the tomatoes. You have a tomato in Spain in the sun with a glass of orange juice, with a piece of bread that has some olive oil on it. It will change your life. Honestly, it really will, because we just finished our olive harvest, and the oil that comes from the land, eaten with fresh tomatoes. There is a type of tomato called tomato rosa. So all these things are really bringing something to us that bring us back to the very essence of what good food is. So the supper club's aim is to bring history, good food, and of course, good conversation around the table.
Tell us about the chef. I believe it was Chef Shama that was cooking up these wonderful dishes in the Manchester Supper Club.
Yes.
Is she going to be serving the food here too, or?
Yes. So Chef Shama and I, we have known each other for a long time, and about 10 years ago, I think, I said to her, one day, inshallah, when we start this House of Andalus, you will be our primary chef. And when I called her last year, when we opened and officially launched our retreats, and I said, I would love you to come and do the food for us, she said, oh, you actually really started? And when she came here in 2025, she was absolutely amazed by the quality of fresh ingredients, and she loves cooking here. So what we do together and in collaboration is that we design a menu that reflects Andalusi history, We are also working on a cookbook, inshallah. And some of the recipes go back all the way to the Middle Ages. But of course, with modern techniques, she makes it into amazing feast for all of us. And I bring the history, and we talk about the history of the food. I explain a little bit about the ingredients and what the Arabs brought to the land. All the ingredients are actually seasonal. And then what she puts together is a really beautiful combination of the freshness, the flavor, and then of course every bite you eat, you know where the food is coming from, and you know why this food is important. So the Arabs brought almond, orange, lemons, coriander, and so many other things, like aubergines and so many other things. So we always use those ingredients in almost every of our recipes, both in the House of Andalus, in our retreats, and also with the supper club.
So, I mean, what are you hoping would be achieved from this supper club? One thing you'd like your participants to take away from this?
I guess through the food and the conversation, I guess I really want people to feel that Spanish Islamic history is an integral part of who we are as Muslims in Europe. And I know since Brexit, we don't particularly consider ourselves European, but I think there's something very powerful about understanding that connection, that legacy. And the interesting thing is, because I have traveled with a lot of people around Andalusia, and almost everyone feels that every part of you is welcomed on this land somehow, whether you're from Pakistan or India. And I had Moroccan friends, and I had people from all parts of the world coming and visiting, and they just felt there's something they feel connected to. And I think it's deeper than just liking Spain because there's sun, and of course the weather is probably much better than in England, but there is a deeper sense of relatability and connection to the history that we all carry, within our DNA as a way of expressing who we are as Muslims.
It just makes me want to go out there once I've eaten. The temptation would be greatly there. So what happens after the supper club if there's everybody who've enjoyed the food and wants to go to Al Andalus? I can't even say it properly, but that beautiful venue.
So really what we want to do is we would like to do these supper clubs in different locations within the UK first. So we have done one in Manchester. We are now in London in February, and we would like to create it as a regular feature to go around and build a community of people who are interested in the culture and the food and everything else that's Al Andalus actually is for us. And then of course every season we have different activities going on in the House of Andalus, and there will be lots of things that we'll be talking about. So whatever is coming up, various retreats, various different programs. I am particularly drawn and now have developed a leadership program which we ran last year for the first cohort. So there is always something interesting happening in the House of Andalus. So people then get onto our newsletter, they will get regular notifications about events that are happening, and the next step is to book a flight and come out.
And I love how you're kind of drip feeding it to us, so we get an insight to what to expect. So you're not kind of thrown in the deep end. You get to experience a little bit of a teaser, really, of what to expect or going to the actual place. Is this intentional?
I guess it is, and I also know that. So what I never wanted to do is to. I'm really having trouble with marketing and the usual kind of big marketing that people do. I really believe that anyone who comes to this place will understand by the time they get here what this place is about, and that requires conversation, that requires connection, and I think that's what I have found is while I was, it has been a very long journey for me to get here, and it has been a very painful journey. But what I found on the way is that because of the connections that I managed and the good connections that I managed to build up, those people just stayed with us because they understand the importance of it. And I don't think it's about money. I don't think it's about getting famous people in, or I had the opportunity and I just didn't feel that it was the right thing to do. But what I do feel is that those who genuinely we are connected to, those are around us, and I can always pick up the phone and I can always rely on them. So it's really about building the community, and this is one of the reasons why we set it up as a social enterprise. This is everyone's space. Everyone who comes, I always invite everyone, go and do some digging if that's what you want to do some gardening, do some weeding, let's do some picking of the olives, let's do something on the land, so you have a connection to this land, because it's, when I pass, it's going to be part of the community, and the community will continue this project. So when we got here, the very first thing we did is we started to reshape the land, and every single stone has someone's name on it, whether it's my children, some friends, some well-wishers, people who really care about and they understand the ethos of this space. They left and they said, I left a stone, or I painted something, or I got something done. And that's
we will share this story straight after the break. We are heading to a break, Henrietta. Please join us straight after this. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
Okay, do emails. Burnt toast. And now I've got to sort my repeat prescription.
Or just tap the NHS app.
The one I've already got?
Yep, you can check test results, view your GP health record, and request repeat prescriptions anytime, anywhere.
All while the kettle's boiling?
Before it boils. And turning on notifications means you'll know the moment you get a new message. We're delivering an NHS fit for the future. Never miss a message. Request repeat prescriptions and more when you tap the NHS app.
Enroll your child into Learning Stars Nursery and give them the best start possible to their education. Spaces are available now for children aged 2 to 5 years old. This is a safe and secure environment where your child will learn through play. To find out more about Learning Stars Nursery in the Saints area on Montrose Avenue next to St Margaret's Church, LU3 1HT, or to arrange a visit and to meet the staff, call 07588 711 652.
Looking for a school where your child can grow, achieve and feel truly supported in an Islamic setting? Oakwood Primary School and Nursery in Luton provide a caring, nurturing environment rooted in strong Islamic values. Our dedicated staff guide students spiritually and academically, helping them build confidence and a real love of learning. We're proud of our excellent inspection reports and the best Key Stage 2 SATs results in Luton, reflecting Oakwood's commitment to high standards and exceptional outcomes. Find out more at oakwoodprimary.co.uk.
Did you see that guy on TV?
What, that no comment guy?
Yeah, he was sick. What was his name?
I think it was Atiq Malik.
Yeah, Atiq Malik of Liberty Law Solicitors. Atiq Malik heads up the criminal law team at Liberty Law Solicitors, specialising in everything from serious crime down to road traffic offences.
To find out more or for a free telephone consultation, call 01582 459955.
Liberty Law, there when you need us most.
A large and elegant wedding and events venue in the heart of Luton, catering for up to 1,200 guests, with a 5-star food hygiene rating, plenty of parking, bridal suite, family rooms and prayer facilities. Crescent Hall's the perfect venue for your wedding, events, parties and conferences. We have some great offers for summer. Contact us to find out more. Call 01582 723386. Email bookings@crescenthall.co.uk or search for us online and social media. Crescent Hall Luton. Conditions apply.
Imagine facing a brutal winter without shelter and under constant attack. From the flood victims in Pakistan to the refugees from Syria, Yemen and Gaza, Families Relief is distributing essential winter aid worldwide to help the poor and needy with poverty, disease and basic necessities. Together, we can save lives. Donate now by calling 0114 365 4454 or visit familiesrelief.org.uk. Act now to make a difference.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is I Am Khalid. You are tuned into the Rise and Shine show with Tariq. Keep it locked.
Does your car sound like this on the school run? Want to change that? Then tune into the Rise and Shine show with Brother T. Sing along to awesome nasheeds, answer our puzzling riddles, and tell us what you think of our newest event. The Rise and Shine show, every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 10:30.
Catch a creative vibe on the Urban Kube with Sister Shemiza.
Good morning and assalamu alaikum. It is 10:30, 26th of January, and you're listening to me, Shemiza, taking you all the way up to 11 o'clock on the second part of the Urban Kube show. It's an absolute pleasure to be in your company. Thank you for staying with us on Inspire FM 105.1 FM. We are going out to our wonderful listeners in Luton surrounding areas, Peterborough's Salam Radio and Sheffield's Link FM. And we are joined by an absolutely wonderful guest on the show today, joining us all the way from beautiful Spain. It is no other than the wonderful Henrietta Szovati. She's a writer, leadership consultant and coach, and the founder of the House of Andalus. She is on the show today, and we're talking the secrets of Andalus and the art of conversation. Now, the wonderful Henrietta is live with us today, and she's going to be talking to us about the story behind an Andalusian supper club, which is an intimate evening inspired by Al-Andalus, where food, culture, and conversation come together under candlelight. Thank you so very much, Henrietta, for staying with us and joining us on the show this morning. It is 10 o'clock, well, 10:30 here in lovely Luton. What's the time in Spain this morning?
We are just an hour ahead, 11:30.
And tell us your breakfast routine in Spain.
I knew you were going to ask me about food because it's such an integral part of Spanish culture, of course. Spanish love their food, of course. And here in the mountains, because I'm rather secluded, so I did my shopping on Friday when I came up, and I haven't been back to the village since. So I probably have to go down this afternoon to stock up on milk, fresh eggs and things like that. But we have, usually I have an early coffee, and I squeeze some fresh orange juice, which comes from the land. I have a glass of orange juice, so my vitamin C is covered for the day. And I usually have a slice of warm bread with some olive oil and fresh tomatoes chopped up, a bit of sea salt on it, and that sets me up for the first couple of hours of the day. I've got a farmer working on the land at the moment, so after the interview, I'm going to join him. Before that, I will have a coffee, probably with him, and we talk about what needs to be done and how we work together on the land. And for that will take us all the way to about 2 o'clock when we will have lunch.
Sounds wonderful. And you have the most beautiful view, picturesque view to have your breakfast in the morning as well, I'm sure. Folks, if you have any questions to ask Henrietta, please feel free to do so on 077 7948 1822. Or you can leave comments on Facebook Live. Henrietta is on Facebook Live this morning, so you get to see her as well. Now, Henrietta, it's been so inspiring listening to you talking about the Andalusian supper club that you're doing. And I'm sure there's going to be lots of listeners kind of wanting to find out more information. Do you have any social media, Facebook page? How can people connect with you?
The best way at the moment is to directly message me on Facebook. I have had a lot of requests, and even though we wanted to make it an intimate event, it is going to be an intimate event, no more than 20 people. We still have a few spaces left on both the 12th of February, but much less on the 13th because I had to put up another event. Fridays just seem to be easier. So for the 12th, we still have a few spaces left. And I think maybe 1 or 2 for the 13th for Friday. But we want to keep it small. We want to keep it intimate because it's about really connecting with like-minded people. So big crowds often put people off, and it also just becomes less meaningful. I much rather have one person having one good connection that is continued and sustained than having lots of chit-chats and small talk. I personally hate small talks. I really value deeper, more meaningful conversations one-to-one, and I think it's in an intimate setting. It's much easier and it's much more meaningful.
Are people expected to have conversations there, or could they just eat and just listen and absorb the moment?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I for one, I love talking about Islamic history, and I love talking about some of the famous people, some of the famous figures that our rooms are here going to be, and part of it is already named after. So some of the unknown figures, some of the people we never heard of, some of them we know roughly, but there are so many wonderful, innovative, creative people whose legacy is, if not forgotten, but at least it's not mentioned enough. So, we have people like Ibn Firnas, we have Ziryat, we have Walada, we have Lubna of Cordoba, we have Ibn al-Khatib, we have Ibn Baitar. So every single one of them created such amazing legacy for us to think about that it would take a lifetime to get to know their lives. So over the food, over the conversations, all these things are going to be coming. And if you just want to listen to that, it's absolutely fine. There's no social pressure on anyone for any kind of forced conversations. If you just want to enjoy a couple of good plates of food actually, and just listen to some of the stories that we will be sharing, that's fine too.
Could I ask then, what type of person would this event appeal to?
Definitely someone who appreciates travel in a different way. I believe that we have a mindset within our community now that we are traveling for more than just having a holiday. I think it's about really connecting to our heritage. I know that I did this with my children, that when they were growing up, I didn't just want to go to some place to have a time out or holiday. That's important too. But I think there's a group of people now, growing number of people who really want to have a little bit more than just going from one place to another. They want to connect to culture. They want to understand the Muslim way of living in different parts of the world. So those who love cultural tours, who travel for information, for inspiration, and really wanting to dig a little bit deeper than just having a superficial holiday experience, because that's one of the things that I found very surprising. So when I was living in Rwanda, I used to do a lot of walks in the mornings, and many a times I saw Muslim couples or single women walking around and visibly Muslims, and they were just looking at their phones. And I often went up to them and I said, "Oh, lovely to see you here. What are you doing?" And they said, "Well, we came here, but we don't really know what to do." And I just took them around. Go and have a look at where the Muslims used to hide. That was a mine. I took them down with an Arabic inscription on top of the mine. So those people who are interested in the little intricacies and the presence of Muslims in various parts of Spain, I think those people would really appreciate the Supper Club.
And the wonderful thing is that you don't have to speak Spanish, right?
No. Absolutely. It's I mean, I really wanted to get some of my Spanish friends to come over from Spain, but it's just not possible at this stage. But maybe, who knows, at a later stage we might have some genuine Spanish contributors as well that I would like to become part of the Supper Club as we go along.
It sounds amazing, and definitely an event not to be missed. If there's anybody interested in this, please do connect with Henrietta on her social media to find out more. Henrietta, I want to talk to you now about your role as a coach and leadership as well, because you are a leadership consultant and a coach. What does that entail?
So I started off as a coach 15 years ago, and I don't I guess the journey that I went through while I was doing that, I realized that there is a need for us Muslim women to redefine what leadership is. I have attended and designed and ran so many leadership programs for Muslims and non-Muslims, and I always had this feeling and sensation, and the feedback that I was constantly getting is that there is something is missing for Muslim women, particularly looking at our own leadership skills. There are lots of conversations, and we can go and we can attend a lot of leadership programs. But I guess my inkling was always, how do we galvanize and build a very different ecosystem for Muslim women who are already leaders? And we know in our communities there are so many people doing amazing things. But where are the space for those women to go and do their reflection? Where do they connect to like-minded women? Where do they process what they need? Where do they really have a lived experience with other women, and we build up the ecosystem that we can support each other in what we do, as opposed to having the usual, sometimes toxic narrative of what a female leader should be like. And I think for me, the picture really started to come together in the last couple of years now, to see that female leadership has some very unique elements that we need to really understand and connect it with our faith, and looking at female leadership from a very different lens, something that is more natural, something more organic, something that is more intuitive, and really takes into consideration the female power, internal power that we all carry. And I don't think that gets enough conversation out in the air. So I really, really wanted to take the conversation to a different level.
So are these the conversations that you might tap into in the supper club?
It could be, but we also have a leadership a program that we have curated that addresses these elements. Because you see, what I find is that, again, it's going back a little bit about being critical about what we do and how we do things. I think it's very easy for us to follow what's available all the time, but it's much harder to create a new path. And that's one of the things that I took away from the Andaluses and mainly the female figures, is that if something was not available for them, they created it. There were so many things that was not available here in Andalus for them. So they had to create things, they had to become innovative, they had to be connecting to people at different levels. And I think once we really start thinking about what is the need for our community, how does our community deal with leadership and female leaders, what does leadership actually mean? That was the very first question that I started asking myself. Is it's not about power, it's not about influence necessarily in a loud, arrogant, aggressive way. Because, for example, when you go to a leadership program, they would tell you would be a better leader if you become more assertive. That's well and good if that's your personality. But if your personality is not that kind, how do you still leverage your leadership skills? Because everybody is given leadership skills. We are born with our talents. And I think for me, it's the undoing those layers and discover who we truly are as leaders and leverage on those skills, because we all have them. And once we have them, then we can really do our legacy work. We can do our projects with more authenticity, more ease, more flow, more kindness, more grace, and just remain authentic of who we are. I don't want to become a person who I am naturally not inclined to be, just because that will make me a better leader. I want to be leading something that is natural to me, and it's easy for me, and it comes, from my very being. I don't want to change myself in a way that is required of me because someone else says it will be better. It's some kind of inner realignment, I guess. This is what I wanted to express.
Absolutely. And I always feel that leadership comes from the core of empathy. And if we show more empathy, then that really does shift the narrative of leadership as well. And I'm really pleased that it feels that there is it's quite holistic, that you're doing a 360 through the House of Andalus with the leadership element. And the reason why I say this is because we look back in history and we look at all the leaders from the past, but what about present day? So the fact that you are exploring this, and it shows that, that you're definitely adding value. Then could I ask you the question then, who do you feel are the leaders in present day?
I was hoping this wouldn't come in such a open way. So my take on this is this. I think everyone is a leader when they know what they are leading and they know how to do it. And I know it's a loose definition, but I think it's a true definition, because you see, women particularly, and I'm looking at women. Women have multiple dimensions of leadership, and if you are doing it in your private domain and that's your leadership, if you do it well, with intention, with authenticity, your impact is going to be there, because leadership is always attached to some sort of impact. If you are taking up your passion project, if you are taking up your job, your work, if that's what your legacy work is, because ultimately we have to think about this. As Muslims, we will pass, very, very quickly. We don't know when we are going to pass. And we have to stand in front of Allah, who will ask us, what did you do with your life? What did you do with your skills, your talents? Did you leverage or did you waste? And I think deep down, everybody knows the answer of what is it that they would like to leave behind. But I think we need to also look at it as a way of not just looking at leadership as something out there. It's you have to be a special, unique person. I think everyone is a leader, as long as we know what we are leading and we know how we are leading, whatever that is. Whether it's for you to be a mother and lead your children, amazing, wonderful. We should celebrate more of that. I don't think women are celebrated. If it's you as a community worker within the community, being part of mosque management, being part of a food bank, being part of anything you do and organize for the community, we should celebrate that. If it's your corporate job and you are leading and you are opening doors for the next generation of Muslim women after you, we should celebrate that. If it's a passion project, if it's a legacy project you want to lead, as long as we understand that everybody has the skills to do it, we don't put certain people up the pedestal and think, oh, it's easy for you to do it. But actually, think about everyone can do it. It's just a matter of understanding what I do and why am I doing it? That deep question of why is this so important to me?
And it's your intentions, as you've rightly said. And I love the fact that you have opened it up and allowed everybody to have the opportunity to be a leader, starting from their home, starting from their children, even in the voluntary capacity. When we think of leadership, we always assume it's somebody in a corporate space, in the private or public sector. But it can actually be so simple as actually leading your own home. MashaAllah. That's such a beautiful reminder to our listeners and to myself as well. It's kind of giving me a warm, fuzzy feeling. And it's reminded how important our roles, everyday roles are. But we do it with good intentions. We do it with thoughtfulness and, and a reminder of who we are as Muslims as well. Folks, it's 10:46 and you're listening to the Urban Kube, and I am in the company of the absolutely wonderful Henrietta, mashallah. Such a pleasure to have you joining us all the way from Spain this morning. Now, something that is on everybody's minds as Muslims at the moment is Ramadan. It's only a few weeks, I think less than a month away now. So how are your preparations for Ramadan, Henrietta?
Well, I think it's quite well-known fact now that I write about it a lot, actually. But I find Ramadan very challenging from the fasting perspective because I converted when I was 26, so I never really learned how to practice fasting before as a child. So it wasn't part of my practice. But alhamdulillah, this time I think I am much more intentional. I have been for the last couple of years. So my preparation starts with going decaf for about 2 weeks before Ramadan, so I can go through the fasting with much more ease. I'm really hopeful that this Ramadan, because it's shorter days, it will be even more pleasurable than the last one. But also because where I live in London, I'm part of a community that organizes iftars almost every evening in the local mosque. I try to attend as much as I can whenever my physical state allows me to. And that always helps me to really focus on the importance of community and not to do it alone, not to suffer alone, not to struggle alone. I had a couple of friends that they just look at me when I go for iftar and they hug me because they see how much I'm suffering. And that really helps me to get to the next day and the next day. So it's a kind of up and down journey for me. But this year, I guess my preparation is really about focusing, truly identifying some of the things that I want to work on during Ramadan. And that always involves picking 2 or 3 books that I will be working on in Ramadan. It always involves apportioning a part of the Quran that I will be either memorizing or diving deeper. I'm very careful not to say to myself, I'm going to read the Quran, because then I feel guilty if I don't. So I am a little bit more graceful with myself, and I say I set a lesser target, but more likely to be able to do it, inshallah. And of course, my kids said it last year, Mom, you do the best iftar. So I'm going to continue preparing and planning some lovely iftar tables for my family, inshallah, and friends.
And thank you for your honesty as well, and being quite real about your experience. But the beautiful thing is the growth that you're sharing, and you're striving, and you're building your strength through it, which is beautiful. I'm excited about your iftar recipes. What will they consist of? Please do share.
Well, our table is so we are a very health conscious family. So our table is often very healthy. Although I know a lot of people say about samosas and all of that. I say to my children often that if you suffer for a whole day, I think we deserve a samosa. So I do samosas and I do spring rolls and different kinds of things. Not every day, but we try to kind of incorporate all culture. And in our house, because I'm married to a Bangladeshi gentleman, so our household cuisine is always very different. So we always have something Spanish, or we have something from Bangladesh, or we have something Hungarian, which is where I was born. We have Thai, we have different cuisines, and it's just based on the day of who we are, where we are, who is coming, where we are going for iftar. I cook very different kinds of food, but it's always simple, wholesome, and really about the quality of the food, and it's not the quantity. I don't do the big, massive dinners because I think it's a lot of waste, and it's also doesn't allow for particularly for women to focus on what's important in Ramadan, which is about worship, which is about sitting with the Quran, thinking about important things. So I think less is more in Ramadan.
And rightly so. May it be a beautiful Ramadan for you. And I'm definitely going to be following you on social media if you're going to be sharing posts, because I have followed you in the past, and I have read some wonderful extracts that you've put on your social media. Will you be continuing to do so? Will you be on social media, or is that something that you might detox from? Because I know that a lot of people tend to detox off social media in Ramadan.
Yes, I mean, I will probably continue the writing because that's really helpful for me. It's as I said, I think on page, and I think writing about the experiences of Ramadan is, and I heard quite a few people who said they resonate with the I guess, rawness and the challenges of fasting. So I will continue writing about this, but I haven't made a commitment to myself that I will write every day because I don't know if that's going to be the case. But I think what's important for me about, again, social media is it's very addictive. And I notice it all the time. And I have to stop myself so many times thinking, I'm putting something up, and then you go back and you keep checking how many people looked at it and how, the statistics. And I think that's the wrong attitude to have about ourselves, about what we do, because then it becomes a performance as opposed to a real experience. So if something comes authentically, I will share. And I think it's important because I know it connects me to other people. And if it doesn't, I will just stay quiet with my Quran and my writing at home.
Your writing, I'd like to know more about how I can access that. Titles of your books.
So my very first book that I wrote, it's called Heart Smart. I moved to Spain because of that. I homeschooled my children, so I needed some time. So when we moved to Spain, they went to school here in Spain, the local village school. So while they were at school, I finished the first book. The second book that I worked on, so that Heart Smart is available on our website, and anyone who's interested, you can reach out to me and I will send you the details for that. The second book, actually I'm currently working on a series of books. The second book I read online during the COVID. It's called The Bookseller of Cordoba, and it takes place in 9th century Cordoba. It's a story of a famous Muslim woman that I turned into a story of resilience and how she finds her own path as the caretaker of the Royal Library, and all the stories that are in that book and the historical figures are real figures. And I have spent about 3-4 years just looking at the authenticity of the time and the historical elements of it. And currently I've got, that is not available yet, but some of the readings are available on my Facebook page, and I believe I finished the entire book during Ramadan. And I am also, as part of that series, I'm working on 3 other stories, each taking place in different parts of Andalusia, one taking place in Granada, one taking place in Ronda, and one taking place in Sevilla, picking a famous Andalusi figure and creating a story around that. So those are not yet available. My current projects are, and some parts of it have been shared on my blog, my personal blog, and we also have a House of Andalus Substack where some of the stories are being shared, are to do with a travel guide that I am nearly finished with, and we are also working on a cookbook with Chef Shama, which will come out as the seasons of the House of Andalus slowly. So I guess the best way to inquire about this and get in touch with us is through my social media. On Facebook, we've got a Substack channel, and I'm also on Instagram as Henrietta Szovati. So people can message me and I can guide you to the right place.
It sounds so exciting. And those titles are on my book list. I'm so looking forward to getting them. And it just seems so exciting, the fact that I may, inshallah, one day visit those places in Spain. They're definitely on my bucket list. It's been such a pleasure, Henrietta, having you join us all the way from Spain this morning. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, and the gifts that you give us through your creativity, your writing, your leadership, and especially this supper club, which I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of listeners are going to be kind of inquiring about. Thank you so much, Henrietta, for joining me this morning on the Urban Kube.
Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely to talk to you, Shemiza.
Always a pleasure. Folks, it is the end of the show, and you were listening in to the wonderful Henrietta Szovati, and it's been a pleasure being in your company. Please do check her social medias and to access more information about all the wonderful projects that she's doing. From me, it is the end of the show. Join me same time, same place next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.